Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monday. It's the start of a new month. It's June. It's my birthday month. I'm going on vacation soon. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys today and go through this Basecamp briefings. And then I am off to vacation soon. So I think this is our fifth session of Basecamp briefings powered by Summit Strategy. So again, welcome and thank you for joining. Like any serious climb, success starts at Basecamp. This is where we break down complex RFPs, sharpen BD and capture strategies, and give you the tools to navigate the terrain ahead. As you know, we don't mess around with fluffy, we don't mess around with BS. We just try to give you real strategies to help you reach that summit. So I'm so excited for today's topic because let's be real, your proposal probably isn't losing on compliance. It's losing because it's boring. And I'm excited to talk to you about why I think that. My name is Kristen Maycumber. I am the founder and CEO of Summit Strategy. I have spent my entire career helping government contractors and professional services firms win more, bid smarter, and position themselves for long term success. And at Summit, we specialize in strategic BD, proposal writing, marketing, and training for businesses of all sizes. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why a good proposal might still lose. We're going to talk about what winning actually looks like. And then I'm going to give you 5 fixes that you can use today on your next proposal and just help make that a little bit better of a proposal and hopefully increase your chances of winning. All right, so I like to start with these reality checks and a little bit of hard truth. Your proposals are really, really boring. Like rock your procurement officer to sleep boring. They are probably technically compliant. They're more than likely perfectly formatted and also completely forgettable. And this is the part where most teams get frustrated. They say, but we answered everything. Yes, you did. But the goal is not to just answer. The goal of a proposal is to persuade. Compliance is the minimum. It gets you through that door, but that alone is not going to help you win. Proposals that win are going to be clear, confident, and differentiated. And most proposals, sadly, are none of those things. So today, we're going to call out what's broken in the way most proposals are written and then show you those 5 practical fixes to make yours stand out and actually score well. So, most losing proposals are technically good. They hit all the requirements, they probably sound professional, they show up on time, but that's not enough because the evaluator is going beyond checking for compliance. They're making a decision and they want to feel confident in that decision because usually millions of dollars and their reputations are on the line behind those decisions that they make. So the proposals that win, they have a strategy, they differentiate, they tell a story that's aligned to the customer's goals. And again, you can't win just because you're compliant. You win because you make it easy for them to say yes to your solution and your proposal. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about how the landscape has changed and it's changed fast, especially this year. So we're seeing a lot more competition, we're seeing less money, less contract opportunities, and then we're seeing higher expectations across the board. As we know, agencies are being asked to do more with less and they're swamped, if for especially the ones that still have jobs. Evaluators are stretched thin. They're reviewing stacks of proposals that frankly all start to sound the same by page 3. That means that the margin for error is a lot smaller. It also means that being good isn't enough. You have to be clear, you have to be persuasive, and you have to stand out fast. So, as you're listening today, I want you to ask yourself a question. Are your proposals evolving to meet this reality, or are they stuck in 2017? All right, so we always talk about compliance, scoring matrices, evaluation factors, and we sometimes forget something crucial. There's a human on the other side of that document, a real person, someone who is overworked, under pressure, juggling way too many responsibilities, and reading your proposal in between meetings, email pings, and probably a cold cup of shitty coffee. They don't want jargon. They don't want filler text. They want clarity and they want confidence. So your job with a proposal is not to just answer the mail, it's to make it easy for that person to say, "Yes, that's the one." So if you're writing like a robot or using only robots to do the writing, don't be surprised if a human says no. All right, so let's talk about one more reality check. And I think this is kind of the elephant in the room. You're afraid to be interesting. Somewhere along the way, someone, I don't know who this person is, but they told us that federal proposals had to be super formal, AKA really stuffy, to be taken seriously. So, what did we do? We buried our voice. We stripped out the story. We neutered the writing until it sounded like a contract clause. But here's the truth. Again, you're being read by real humans who are overwhelmed, skimming fast, and desperate to find a solution that they trust. So if your content is dry, if it's vague, if it's just plain boring, you're making it harder for them to say yes. Being clear, confident, and yes, a little interesting is not unprofessional. It's strategic, and it might be the thing that finally helps your proposal stand out. All right, so let's go through these 5 brutal fixes. Now that I've talked a little bit of crap about some of your proposals, I want to give you some solutions. These are going to be direct, uncomfortable, but necessary if you want to stop losing. So if you've ever thought, we were so close, we thought we nailed it, we don't know why we lost, then buckle up because these 5 fixes are going to hit hard and hopefully help you win. And I forgot to mention that I will answer questions at the end, and then I will send these slides out. So don't feel free that, or don't feel like you need to take screenshots or copious notes. You'll get these slides after. All right. So most proposals sound like they were written by ChatGPT on cold brew, probably because they were, especially these days. They're formal, they're robotic, and they're just painfully generic. We're so worried about sounding professional that we forget to sound persuasive. And evaluators, they're not impressed by fancy jargon and a bunch of sentences that just sound really great, which is what a robot kicks out. They're skimming for clarity and confidence. So, again, if your proposals read like a compliance exercise instead of a conversation, that is going to be your first problem. So, let's break this down with a real example. On the left there of the slide, we have what I call robot writing, the kind of language that we see in just way too many proposals. Things like ABC Inc. is a leading provider of mission focused, client centered solutions. Okay, but what does that actually really mean? Then it gets a little worse. Our team brings extensive experience across a broad range of initiatives. Still nothing specific, no numbers, no outcomes, no substance. It's just a bunch of buzzwords strung together. So then we compare that to the right side, which is what we call human writing. Things like, we helped a federal agency cut backlog by 40% and improve processing speed within 90 days. That's clear, that's specific. That tells me exactly what you did and how it made a difference. Then it continues. We've done this work before, on deadline, under pressure, and with the results to show for it. Suddenly, I trust you. I can picture you doing this work. You're not talking at me, you're talking to me. So here's the takeaway. Robot writing leans on buzzwords. Human writing leans on outcomes. So again, robotic proposals are going to be exhausting for humans to read because they're going to have to dig through all the sentences that sound great in theory but don't actually really say anything. Human ones are going to be easy to skim, grounded in results, and way more likely to get read and most importantly, remembered. So, how do we actually start writing like a human? We want to use plain language. We want to make our sentences do more with less. We don't want to bury the point in a bunch of boilerplate, fluffy, corporate, crappy text that no one really cares about. They don't care about your history or your origin story. And then if you can't back it up with a stat, a quote, or a result, you want to delete it. And then, most importantly, you want to read it out loud. If it sounds fake, if it sounds overwritten, or like something a mid tier chatbot would spit out, rewrite it. You're not writing a novel, but you're trying to make it ridiculously easy for someone to say yes to your solution. All right, second, too many proposals read like menu listings. They're a laundry list of services, features, boilerplate, and then a thin why us buried somewhere in a dense paragraph on page 18. And literally, this happens all the time. I'm actually going through a process right now to audit a few clients' proposals, and literally on page 18 in a really dense paragraph was a win theme. And, like, the client there's no way the client's gonna read that because they're skimming, they're tired, they don't wanna be reading these proposals. So, writing that way and burying your information like that is called stuff first. Evaluators get fatigued flipping those pages looking for a narrative and looking for the reasons they should choose you. Strategy first actually flips that script. So you start with the customer's problem and then your plan to solve it. Everything else becomes proof points and details rather than the other way around. So let's look at how this plays out in a real proposal. On the left, you've got the classic stuff first approach: 24/7 help desk support, custom training, system upgrades. It's a list of offerings. Again, it's technically accurate, but it's also vague, static, and written in a vacuum. It doesn't connect the dots for the evaluator. It doesn't say why any of this matters. Now, on the right, you see what I call strategy first writing. When your users hit a critical outage, we get you back online in under 2 hours so you stay mission ready. Now we're talking about outcomes. We're talking about risk and readiness. This version is not just a listing of what we do, it's explaining how it solves a problem that matters. It's not that the stuff on the left side is wrong, it's just incomplete. So the first one sounds like a brochure, the second one sounds like a win. So, how do we actually do this? Let's start at the base: your customer's pain. So, you need to think about this first and foremost. What problem are they trying to solve? That should be the first thing they see when they read your proposal. If they don't feel seen by line 3 of your cover letter or your executive summary, you've already lost them. Next, we want your solution roadmap. This is your playbook. This is your plan. What's going to happen first? Why? If your strategy is buried on page 12 under a pile of service descriptions, you're doing it backwards. And again, these are real examples. I'm not just making this up. Now you want to start with and bring in structure with bold, skimmable headers. So the headline, the main headline always has to be the RFP or scope of work language so that you're compliant. You want to use that verbatim. Then you want to add a subheader that brings in your value, your timeline, or your differentiator, something to catch their eye. And again, weave in those important points. So you could use something like task one, program management. That's directly from the RFP or the scope of work. And then the subheader could be: our proactive approach reduces administrative burden and ensures faster response times. So again, you're weaving in that story and making it interesting so it's not just a boring regurgitation of your approach. Each header should really tell a story and make your solution obvious at a glance. So think about switching it up the way you write your headings and subheadings. Then you want to back it all up with metrics and proof. Talk is cheap. Evaluators need to know how your plan works, and the best way to show that is through stats, wins, quotes, outcomes. So your plan is what's going to lead, but then your results are what's going to validate. And then finally, you want to test the flow. If someone can't read your proposal and read back your or repeat back your strategy in 15 seconds, it's not ready. So again, we want to start with strategy first, stuff second, always. All right, so let's talk about another hard truth. Every proposal is filled with words like experienced, trusted, mission focused, innovative, which is my favorite, committed to excellence. And evaluators, honestly, they tune out. You say you're great. Okay, so does everyone else. Where's the evidence, the results, the receipts? If you want to stop winning, or if you want to start winning, you have to stop telling and you have to start proving. Which brings me to the third point. You can't coast on empty claims. If you say you're the best, the fastest, the cheapest, the most reliable, the most innovative, you have to back it up. Otherwise, cut it out of your proposal. Because again, if you can't prove it, it's just filler, and filler is not going to win you the job. All right, so this one's a classic. On the left, we've got what we see in nearly every single proposal. Phrases like, we're a trusted partner across government. We're committed to innovation. We understand your mission. Cool. So does everyone else. These are claims, not proof. And again, if you can't back them up, they're just noise in your proposal. Now we look at the right side. This is what we mean by proof-based writing. Things like we've delivered 60 plus federal projects over 10 years with a 97% CPARS ratings. That's credibility. Or our process reduced onboarding time by 35% and helped a client scale 2 times faster. That's an outcome. We've supported 3 similar missions, including a $20 million program with identical goals. That's relevance. So again, evaluators don't care what you say, they care what you've done and the impact that you've made for other similar clients. If you can't prove it, don't write it, cut the fluffy crap, and add those receipts. The worst time to look for these proof points and metrics and success stories is in the heat of a deadline. You're already stressed out, your proposal's due in a week or two. You're trying to remember which proposal had that really great client quote. That's going to make your life really unhappy. You have to build a proof library and you have to build it now before you're again in the heat of a deadline. So you want to think about real stats, real quotes, real impact, and make it ready to go. So, how do we actually do that? Track your performance now. So make metrics and impact part of your closeout, your project closeout process. Make sure that you're gathering that input from your PMs. You want to look through your past proposals. So pull, things like quotes and stats and outcomes that you've already written and just start putting them into a document. Get client testimonials. Even one line of praise, just a simple quote, can make a claim credible for your next proposal. Use naming and numbers. So statements like we've supported, agency name with 120 SMEs across 22 states. So always think about quantitative proofs versus just qualitative. And then you want to organize it for reuse. Make it easy for your team to find and apply. This does not have to be some big fancy spreadsheet or a big CRM system. Honestly, I've built these in a simple Excel spreadsheet that's searchable, taggable. You can do it in a Word document. It doesn't really matter. OneNote's fine. But just start building your proof point library so that you have it and you don't need to go hunting for the next best thing the second you are in the middle of a deadline. All right. Don't let me break your heart with this one, but proposals are not read. They are scored. And beyond that, they are usually just skimmed. So if your layout buries the win themes, hides the strategy, or drowns evaluators in walls of really dense, boring text, you are making their job harder and you are making it easier for someone else to win. All right, so let's talk about design. On the left, we've got what most proposals look like. A wall of 12-point text, usually Times New Roman in the federal space, no strategic headers, no visual flow. Everything looks the same, so nothing really stands out. You might have really great content in there, but if it's buried in a block of text, no one is reading it. Now, on the right, we're showing what actually sticks. You have a clear win theme at the top. You have strategic bolding, call outs, visual breaks, icons, bullets, formatting, something that guides the evaluator's eye straight to your value and straight to what you want them to pay attention to. Because here's the truth. Design is strategy. Sometimes we think about design as a nice to have or something that we do that someone, some fancy graphic designer does at the end of our proposal process. But honestly, it's a really important piece of the proposal process because you've got 30 seconds or less to hook someone on a page. And so you want to design like that and really think through that because otherwise, the best written content is just going to fall flat if no one actually sees it. So, one of the easiest places to add proof points and design elements is in the approach or management section. We spend so much time writing the actual approach and all the things that we're going to do, we forget to talk about how and where we've actually successfully done this before. So it can be a simple call out box in your approach section that weaves in your success stories. Or it can be a call out box that has a client quote that relates to, again, your approach or a point that you're trying to make. So, again, we don't have to make this super complicated. We just want to draw the eye to really important pieces. All right, so I want to clear something up when I'm talking about design because this is always a question. I am not talking about pretty pictures. I'm not talking about just sprinkling in some stock icons or slapping a photo in the corner of a page. I am talking about clarity, I'm talking about readability, and I'm talking about, most importantly, making your message impossible to miss. Great design doesn't just decorate the page and make it look pretty, it directs your eye and it directs your attention. So, again, if your win theme is buried in paragraph 6 on page 32, again, real life example, it might as well not exist because it's going to get lost. Your evaluators are not going to find it. So again, this is not about making your proposal look pretty, although it is nice if it looks great, but we really want to make it easy to read, to score, and to trust. Evaluators don't want to dig, and they're not going to dig for your value. If your proposal should feel like an answer key, not a scavenger hunt. So let's walk through how that actually works in real life. So first, we want to break up the text. We want to use bullets, tables, diagrams, white space. God, please have some white space in your proposal. A wall of text shuts people down. It gives their eyes nowhere to land. So you want to give their eyes somewhere to land by having white space. You want to make your content skimmable so that evaluators can actually absorb what you're saying. And then we wanna lead with the win theme. This seems obvious, but again, I can't tell you how many times I see them buried in, walls of text 32 pages into the proposal. So you wanna ask yourself, what's the key message or the key takeaway on this page? You wanna make it obvious. And again, it goes page by page because evaluators are skimming and flipping pages quickly. You don't wanna make the evaluator guess why it matters. The win theme has to be front and center, ideally in a bolded subhead or a call out box, so again, they know exactly what you bring to the table. And then we want to highlight proof points. So call out boxes, bolded metrics, pull quotes. Again, evaluators are looking for evidence. Make the data pop. So things like 22% cost savings, 97% satisfaction rate, 30-day turnaround. You want to use formatting to make your proof easy to find and again, hard to miss for those really busy, overwhelmed evaluators. And then lastly, you want to use visuals intentionally. Graphics should reinforce your message, not just fill space. So again, that's why we don't want to just slap some pretty photos in the corner of a page to say, oh, I used graphics. I thought about design. That's definitely not what I'm talking about. And then something to think about, if your graphic says the same thing as the paragraph right next to it, delete one or the other. Charts, icons, timelines, they should really add clarity and add more to your message versus just clutter up the page. So again, think about design as function and as an important element of your proposal because done right, it helps you win because it directs your evaluators to the important points. All right, lastly, most proposals spend 80% of the page talking all about the company. And I get it, like it's your proposal, so you think it's your job to talk about yourself and the company. So, you're filling your proposal with phrases like we are, we provide, we offer. But here's the thing, your customer doesn't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about your org chart. They don't care about your origin story. They don't care about your buzzwords. They don't care about your corporate solutions, whatever. They care about how you're going to help them solve their problem. So in our proposals, we have to flip the focus or we're going to lose the value evaluator. So don't focus on what you want to sell. You want to focus on what they want to buy. I'm going to say that again. Don't focus on what you want to sell. It is not about you. Focus on what they want to buy. Imagine that you are at a table with them. Don't shove the product across the table at them. You want to make them reach across and grab it. So that is what your proposal's job is to do. So here's another subtle shift that will make a huge impact in your proposals. So on the left there, we've got, again, proposal language that is technically fine. Things like we provide full lifecycle support services. We bring over 20 years of experience. Our team is skilled, certified, and responsive. But again, you notice the focus. It's all about us, what we do, what we've achieved. Now you look at the right side and it takes the same credentials and reframes them through the lens of what the client actually gets. So you turn it into phrases like, you get support from day one through closeout with zero surprises. Or you'll work with people who know this space, speak your language, and make your job easier. So again, it's the same resume, same points, it's just a different message. And when you shift focus from what you do to what they get, you stop sounding like a vendor and you start sounding like a partner. And again, that's what wins. All right, so this is your cheat code for writing better proposals and flipping the focus. Again, most teams are going to default to writing and talking about themselves because that's easy. But if you really want to win, you have to talk about the client and you have to talk about their mission, their challenges, and their outcomes. So let's break that down. We want to swap we for you wherever possible. So instead of saying we provide secure data storage, say something like you get secure access anytime from anywhere. So again, it's just flipping the focus. Show you understand their world. Mention their mission. Reference their pain points, but please don't call them pain points. I feel weird that I have to say this, but I read a proposal the other day that literally said, "We know your pain point is XYZ." I know that we use the phrase pain point a lot in proposal speak, and in our kind of internal worlds as we're building proposals because we push the capture teams and BD teams to understand the client's pain points, but we should never write that in a proposal because if I'm reading that, if I'm the client and I read what my pain points are in a sentence, I feel icky, like I feel gross because I'm like, wait, I don't have pain points. Like this is weird. So talk about things in reference to like their challenges or their goals or objectives, but just don't use pain points. So I had to add that. And again, when you're writing these, it's hard to specify things like this because especially if you don't know the client, it's hard. But it's going to be really obvious if you've copy pasted this from another proposal because it's not going to be tailored to this agency, their mission, their goals. All right, third is lead with client benefit, not your process. So again, this is that strategy first, stuff second. So things like you get to launch 2 times faster is stronger than we use agile sprints. Of course, no one cares. Like they want to know what you're going to do, how you're going to help them, how you're going to make their life easier. So you want to lead with that outcome that they care about the most. And then lastly, you want to tailor. Generic is going to be forgettable, but specific is going to be a great winning proposal. It's going to be irresistible because the client's going to read it and think, yes, this is made for me. This helps me solve all my big problems, and I want to hire this company right away. And then think about if you can, as we're tailoring, if you can plug your content and your sentences into someone else's proposal, like one of your competitors, and it still works, you haven't tailored it enough. It's not about the outcomes that you bring or the differentiators, it's just generic boilerplate. So, to wrap this up, when in doubt, you want to ask yourself for every sentence, does this sentence show how we help them being the client, win? If not, cut it. Because again, the best proposals have a message written just for that evaluator, and that's going to be how you win. And then if you have a features benefit table, turn it around. So list the benefits first because they're going to buy benefits and they really don't care which features provide it except to confirm compliance with the requirements. But again, it's all about them. So we should show the benefits first always. All right, so this one might sting a little bit, and I told you a couple times, but I'm gonna say it again. You're just you're one of a sea of a dozen vendors, in a bunch of proposals on their desk or in their inbox. They do not care how long you've been in business. They don't care how passionate you are. They don't care how pleased to present you are for your proposal. What they care about is themselves. They care about their deadlines, their challenges, their boss breathing down their neck, and your job is to make it crystal clear how you're going to make their life easier. And then maybe they will actually care about who you are. So I mentioned this at the beginning. Somewhere along the lines, we started confusing professional with lifeless. We think it's a federal proposal. It needs to sound super formal. So we strip out every ounce of voice, every sign that a real human wrote it. And then the result is stiff, soulless content that sounds exactly like the 10 other proposals on their desk. But again, here's the truth. Evaluators are people. We forget about this. They have inboxes to get through. They have headaches and timelines and pressure. They don't want more fluffy BS. They want to feel seen and understood. They want to say, yes, this is exactly what we need when reading your proposal. So when they read your proposal, they should feel like you've already thought 3 steps ahead, that you get their mission, that your solution fits just like it was built for them. That's what wins. Not fancy language that ChatGPT can spit out, not who can throw around the most acronyms, and who can drown the readers in a bunch of boring technical data. They care about, and the things that will win you that proposal are going to be clarity, relevance, and confidence. Again, if they see themselves in your solution, you're already halfway to a yes. All right, so closing thoughts. None of these fixes matter if you're chasing the wrong opportunity. So if you don't know what the client actually needs, if you haven't built the relationship, if you're guessing instead of shaping, it doesn't matter how sharp your writing is because you can't write your way out of a bad pursuit. That's why a lot of these things start with knowing the customer. They start with insight. They start with alignment. They start with strategy. So, yeah, stop writing like a robot, but you have to build in strategy. You have to bring the proof. You have to make it visual. You have to speak directly to the evaluators. But most importantly, you have to start with knowing them. I can't reiterate this enough. You can have the best proposal in the world, the prettiest looking proposal in the world that has all the greatest polished sentences, but if you don't actually know them and know how to help make their lives easier, you're not going to win this proposal. And that's really what separates the companies that win from the companies that just submit and hope. All right, so I know I went through a lot of ideas and thoughts today. So I wanted to give you a quick checklist so you can take this slide. You can hit pause later as you're watching this and grab this checklist or look at it when we send out the slides, so that this will help you, make your proposals a little less boring and hopefully make them a little bit more easy on the eyes and easier for those evaluators to say yes, which again is what we want. If you want honest feedback on your proposals, or if you need help writing your next proposal, of course, you can call in the experts. And oh, by the way, that's us. So we do it all. We do everything from business development strategy to helping you with capture planning, marketing, branding, proposals, writing, management, orals, training, all that good stuff. But most importantly, for this topic, we can jump in with a fresh set of eyes and provide an audit on a live proposal or a recent proposal. If you're not in the middle of one right now, to just make sure that you're hitting all these must have elements and give you just a different perspective to think about. So let me know if you're interested in talking about that. And then I'm going to be out for the next couple weeks. So our next session is July 14th, and we're going to talk about how your BD system is broken and here's how to fix it. This is another one of my favorite topics to talk about. So hit that QR code in the top right so that you can register directly on the LinkedIn page for that session on July 14th. And then lastly, this is my contact information. That QR code goes straight to my calendar. So if you want to take a few minutes and talk through how we can help you on your next proposal or help you with capture so that you're getting ahead of proposals and can actually get that customer insight, let me know and feel free to reach out and schedule time. Otherwise, it was a great pleasure talking to you guys today about proposals. We will send these slides out and I will hop on the LinkedIn page here in a second and answer some questions. So thank you again for joining, and we hope that you have a great month.